Welcome to MMA with Pepe Dab, episode 13. Sorry, we had to take a little bit of a hiatus last week. A lot of stuff going on in my world right now, and because of that, and no fights this weekend, we also will be taking a hiatus next week. But we'll get into that a little bit later. With no further ado, I am Dab Hatter, and I'm here with my co-host, Pepe.
Buenas noches a todos.
So there's a lot going on in the world of MMA. Like I said, there was a whole fight card that we watched. It was a pretty lackluster card. I did watch that one 2 weeks ago. It wasn't nothing too insane, so we're not going to really cover that one too much. But there was a fight card that had just happened again this weekend, and we will get into that one, of course, with the main event being the Ciryl Gane versus Alexander Volkov. But there was a lot of stuff going on. It wasn't. I missed this fight actually. And now this is one of my problems I have with stuff like this is
I want to talk about the timing.
yeah, like I turned it on at the normal time, so that would be around 6, 7 o'clock Eastern time, is when the fights start for me anyway. So I would turn it on, and I was watching the co-main event, and I was like, well, damn, I just missed the whole card. And this isn't the first time this happened to me. I've even missed. They've had big pay-per-views in Dubai at Fight Island. Now that one totally on me because it's broadcasted. They tell you like, and you could almost guarantee if it's a Fight Island that it's going to be a different timing. But for the fight nights, and this one was still in Vegas, they did it early, and I missed the whole fucking card because of it. Now I realize it's just a fight night, but still, it kind of sucked for me. I still got to see Tanner Boser put in some work, and then I got to see the main event, which then, of course, as we've learned today, has turned into so much more, and we'll get into that later with Ciryl Gane and Francis Ngannou, or not Francis Ngannou, with Derek Lewis, forgive me. So, but yeah, we'll get into that later. But yeah, Pepe, you got to watch it all because you paid attention enough to know when the fight was going on. Why do you think they didn't they pulled this one back in Vegas?
It is in Vegas, and obviously, me being a fan of the combat sports, I knew that there were two big fights happening in Vegas. Well, not in Vegas, both of them, but pay-per-view events that people wanted to watch. One is Vasily Lomachenko that he was fighting that night, and also Gervonta Davis. Those two boxing matches were one of them pay-per-view. I don't know how if it works the same in the States. For me, it was open to watch, but I knew that it was the UFC coming up to those two events. So I think I saw it coming because of it. The problem is I agree with you. There isn't many uh, noise been made about the time and why it's done that way. I don't know if they have a deal, as you said before the show, that we have a deal with boxing, so we can give the time to boxing depending on what's the agency that's promoting the boxing match. But one of the things that I think it's yeah, that Vasily
It's
Lomachenko fight easily would take over one card that we have in the UFC. There's no competition.
and like you had said to me before when we were talking about this off air, like one of the boxing matches was in fact on ESPN, right? So I wouldn't doubt if that's probably like Mickey Mouse coming down to Uncle Dana and saying basically like, listen, this is, it's just a fight night. We've got this going on too. We're actively trying to grow boxing. I think is a culminating goal right now. So I wouldn't doubt if they said hey, it's just a fight night. Let's push it back. But I don't know. And maybe it's on me for not watching as much ESPN and seeing all the commercials and stuff. Yeah, maybe not. But it just seems like when it's aside from whatever I'm watching the fight, and then they'll have the one quick break that shows the upcoming stuff down the future. And to my recollection, it doesn't say if it's going to be an early night or not, even when they do those little breakdowns. It'll just say the date, and that's the fight. The date, that's the fight. You know what I mean? It never says this time or this time. Even if they were to go at the end of each fight night, or were to go over, oh, by the way, next Saturday, meet us back here for the early start or something like that. You know what I mean? That just something like that would stop me from missing a whole card of good fights.
Now, once again, the problem that I have with Uncle Dana and making money out of it, it's still the naming convention of each of the events. It's confusing for me. It's UFC Las Vegas number whatever, or
Yeah.
is it UFC Fight Night and then the name of the fighters, which is completely different of
Well, because now they were
I'm not
saying,
defending boxing.
yeah.
I am just showing the example that why don't you put the names on top of it? Not UFC name tag whatever fight night. I'm looking for example, notes about the fights or articles that you can read about what they feel or see about the fighters on that night. And I'm not sure if I should find it under Las Vegas number 29, 25, or Fight Night 100 and something. That's confusing. It's like, okay, Volkov versus
Yeah,
uh,
and that's what it seems like they
Young.
name them as right now. Is it's fight? I believe it's like it's fight night, and then it's the names of whoever the main event is, and that's the way. Because when I search it on my phone, it does it right through Google, and then it shows the breakdown. And I'm not sure if it's through TSN, which is the Canadian version of ESPN, but it actually okay. So it shows the card, but then above that it'll have a little side scroll, and you can go like, so this was this fight night. You side scroll back one, it'll go the fight night the week before, or if it was a pay per view, it'll show the paperwork the year before. So aside from that, yeah, I would have no idea what number they're on or what they're doing or if it's fight night or if it's because I think for a while they were saying live from the Apex Center even, and they were like, oh, this isn't going to count for that while we're in COVID, and if we don't have fans, it was all a muck. And it was kind of going back to the whole reason that I had stopped watching UFC because they had just come out with so many different fights on random nights and stuff. It was just too much for me to keep up with. And it wasn't until they got back to they got the special events on the Wednesdays and Thursdays now every once in a while, whether that be Ultimate Fighter or the Contender Series. But fight nights is just Saturdays, and if it's not a fight night, it's a pay-per-view. That's easy for me. Saturday nights, fight nights. I'm watching fights Saturday night. Whether that be a pay-per-view or a fight night, doesn't matter. There's still fights on my TV every Saturday. I can allot that time to watch UFC. But when I allot that time, it usually starts at 7 o'clock, not 4 o'clock. And it would be nice to know maybe the week before so I can plan around to it. Some of that's on me, but I definitely think they can make that information a little bit more, not necessarily accessible, but broadcasted a little more.
Yeah, and I mean, I know it's anecdotal from both of us, and you have TSN in the US. I'm sorry for everyone. We have ESPN El Ocho, and it's harder as well for people to find out those events. This is anecdotal for both of us, but if you want to earn more and more people and more fans that get want to get used to it, it's easy to find out if it's Saturday night at that time or if it's going to be. I mean, for us that we're needy peaky, as you said, there is no fans involved. We're going to hear the kicks. We're going to hear the coaches because it's in the Apex, or it's in the Apex. It's a smaller octagon. It's going to be, I mean, we're talking more into this, but if you're talking about regular fans that you want to get more people into it, it's not helpful. At least I don't think it's
NFL is
helpful.
every Sunday. Games start at 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and the Sunday nighter starts at 8:30. If that's ever going to change, if it's a late game on the Sunday, or if they have two games on the Sunday because they're going to play on the West Coast, I always know. And I don't watch TV to see the commercials to tell me that, but through watching football, I know that shit's gonna change. It should be the same as I'm watching UFC, which I know starts every day, every Saturday at whatever time. You know what I mean? I should be able to watching it. If times are gonna change, be informed of that. And that's I don't know. Maybe it's just a creature comfort, but I I as a fan missed the card. So as a random may not. You know what I mean? Somebody new, they're definitely missing the card. So I
That
don't know.
is true.
I think something could definitely be done there as far as scheduling and whatnot. That's for damn sure. But
That is
you
correct.
did get to watch the card. I'm looking through here. It looks like a lot of split decisions and submissions, knockouts,
Yeah,
and then
there's
another
out of the
unfortunate eye poke.
seven, I think out of the seven, only two of them went to the distance and decisions. The rest were interesting on knockouts and submissions. The two that I think that are worth mentioning about the prelims, the first one is Jeremiah Wells. The knockout punches, if you have the time to watch it again or just see the replay on how it finished on the second round.
Yeah, 30
It was
seconds
on the
into the second
beginning
round.
of the second round. My gosh, I mean, he was just a beast, and you see him celebrate. He was just pumped, and he's gonna be dangerous if he keeps the pace. On the first round, I think he was a bit slow. I don't know if it was nervousness. He was taking his time, but on the second round, I think the corner said, "You know what? We need to turn this on," and it was on. It was dangerous. Very good finish. It was interesting to see. There was not much out of Alves on defense. He was surprised, but man, it was very good to watch that fight. It was interesting from that night. I think that was one of the one that I look forward to.
I think with
And
all the finishes too, maybe is why it wrapped as early as it ended up being too, because like you said, there was 3 decisions through the whole card, or no, 4, sorry, 4 decisions, one of them being the main event.
and you know when that goes fast, and if you have a quick stops on the fights, they added and you have to rewatch every time the Poirier McGregor
The
story and
vignette
the
and everything, and
vignette. It was over and over again. It was more commercials. It was talking about the experience of running it for the third time. And I mean, it got tired a little bit on me because it's like, okay, I know it was a quick finish. We
especially
need to
it's
make the time
the
so you
third
can
one,
get to
right?
the yeah.
So it's like we're reliving this thing over and over and over again. Who was on the call? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was DC came back just
Oh,
to make
okay.
sure that yeah, and the Red Dragon as well. I can't remember the name
Paul
of this guy. The
Anik or
blonde. Um, it was Felder, DC, and I can't remember the name. It was John, not John, but the other one.
oh, the other guy. Okay,
Ah,
not Dan Hardy, obviously, because he's been fired.
no,
But no, I
no,
do
no,
know who
no.
you're talking about. Okay,
Uh,
so I was surprised to see DC come back for jump back into a fight, and I guess not. It'll be interesting to see who they got on the call.
and Brendan
For the
Fitzgerald. I'm sorry.
Brendan Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Google, for thank you. We have to be professional. Oh, thank you for my producer that told me that
Yeah, in my
it's Brendan
ear.
Fitzgerald. It's in my ear, yeah. But
um,
it's Googled. So yeah, it was. I mean, Brendan does a very good job on description on the fights. The interesting piece that it was DC was doing the post fight interviews like
yeah.
Joe does whenever it's a pay per view. He did a very good job. I mean, he's not as inquisitive as Joe Rogan is about the preparation, about what techniques they used. It was more about the hype.
And they only
Just
throw him in there
about
for big fight finishes and usually like main events. But I've even seen it on like co-mains that they won't even put him in there on a co-main.
yeah, and then they even asked DC, "Why are you here? Aren't you supposed to be on vacation? Whatever." And he explained. I mean, he was involved on the wrestling for his coach. I mean, his son and all of the college sports that he's following and supporting. So he was focusing on that. That's I mean, respect on that part because he's also very involved on the amateur wrestling area and being a good role model for those kids. So kudos for him, and he came back on this one. He was doing the post fight interviews.
So
The other one that the other one that I want to talk about on the prelim, it's the Kennedy. I'm sorry, I'm gonna do a dab hatter in here. It's Chukwu.
see, it's not always
Sechukwu.
easy being the first guy along.
I know, freaking. Well, he
Like
defeated
Chukwu.
Marquez. Yeah, and the story of the guy is just man amazing. He's got his mother with ALS. There's a piece on the UFC channel that you if you have a chance to see it, I mean it's heartbreaking. If the guy needs motivation to do it, he's got it. I mean, it's just 100% taking care of his mom in between the fights, in between the trainings, and it did not started well for him. On the first round, he was taking they Danilo is a very good BJJ. You can tell he took his back. In the first round, it was the entire round as a backpack. It was just a human backpack. He was carrying the weight. He was just defending hands, just covering the punches. He was doing good, but it was, I said, second round, he was going to be gassed. I mean, you're carrying that weight the entire first round, you're going to be gassed. On the second round, he got taken down. He was in trouble, but then got better on the third round. Danilo got tired and he was ready to just throw all of the punches and everything he's got and stop it. It was a very good fight. A lot of heart. He was in trouble in the first 2 rounds. Good defense. Those are the little details that I like to see because it says they're not doing anything. It's like no, they weren't hand fighting. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just 2-on-1
And even the not
and not
doing
giving anything.
nothing, and like we've argued this before, that even the not doing nothing is still doing something. But like you said, like by him laying on him and him forcing him to support all his weight, that isn't doing nothing. That's burning the guy's legs out and body and gas tank out because he's now carrying the weight of 2 humans on his back. So even nothing, even when it looks like they're not doing nothing, they're still doing something.
The referee was active as well because they were both holding on the top of the octagon. And it's like, don't hold the top of the cage. And then he was trying to push back, and the Brazilian just grabbed a hold of it, and the referee came back again. I mean, to me, it was interesting and exciting, even though it's not big bombs and punches and flashy kicks and Superman punches, but it's very interesting. I am glad to see that this guy made it. I mean, now I'm rooting for him because of everything that happened. He got a bonus out of this fight, which is very good. It's going to help him a lot. So in that case, he came back nicely. He fought very well. There's holes in his game that he needs to fix. That takedown defense, the first one, it was just easy for Danilo. The second one was one-legged takedown and then a wrap. So that's something that he has to work with. But man, that kid has heart, and it's going to be interesting to see him on the next fight and see how he evolves.
Well, it sounds like it was another handsy night in the UFC because we also midway through the main card had Andre Fili win a declared no contest from an accidental eye poke versus Daniel Pineda. I didn't, of course, get to see that fight. I got to see the co-main and the main go down. But how'd that one go down, Pep?
Once again, it's the conversation of the gloves. I mean, Andre was very good on his technique. He was pressuring. He took a couple of takedowns. He was doing very good on the first round, and I think he was going his way. Unfortunately, once again, it's an accidental eye poke. You're thinking about, well, is the other fighter unable to continue? Is he faking it? It's like, well, if you haven't had your eye poked and be sting and hurting and swelling
Did they
and
show the
having blood
replay like they
inside.
always do? And was he a knuckle deep into his eye, in the head?
Yeah, I
Because I'm
mean,
pretty sure that
it's
happened in the main too. Even I'm pretty sure Drago got poked in the eye by Gon, and it showed, and he
once
ended
or
up getting like
twice.
two fingers in his eye, and it was pretty wild. And it was
Once
weird.
again,
I
they
don't know.
have their hands open. It's
Yeah,
it's it's the
I
gloves.
don't understand why it's such a problem now, though. I think it's just because the way fighting's evolved and stuff like that. But like we were saying before we went live, I was telling you, I was showing a friend, we were talking like Bruce Lee and stuff. We were talking Wing Chun, and I just happened to say, like, you know, who was good at Wing Chun was Anderson Silva, and he wasn't much one that watched UFC. So we went back and watched some old Anderson Silva fights and watched like the Rich Franklin Anderson Silva fights, and even in that fight, it was Big John Reffin, and he was hollering about fingers. But I would get like. It just seems to me that we never used to see fights stopped for one, or even had as many eye pokes back in the day. And like they were still fighting, they were still hand fighting, but it never seemed to really hit the eyeballs as much. At least it didn't seem like it. And for sure, I can't remember as many fights being stopped by. So I don't know what it is now that it's become so prevalent. It just seems like even within the last year, even that it's really become a huge issue of fighters. It seems like it all started with the Bilal card. You know what I mean? There was like 5 eye pokes in that card. Bilal's fight got ended because of an eye poke in that card. That was all, that whole card. If you remember, there was like 3 DQs. One that actually changed belts. Obviously, that was different set of circumstances, but it just seems like now it's the eye pokes become more prevalent. I don't know if because they're doing more hand fighting, or if they're not hand fighting properly, or the way they used to. I definitely see the need for like the touching like that, but I don't know what the solve is. A lot of people saying get the Bellator gloves. Another one said there was somebody that's come up with a design.
The Trevor Whitman
Yeah, it's Trevor
gloves.
Whitman
Yeah,
gloves.
yeah. Those are ones that have been talked about, and fighters are comfortable training with those, and they feel safe, even if they're sparring and they might not be hurt by the other opponents. I mean, yeah, the combat sports is evolving. I mean, the calf kicks were not used before, as now it's a weapon that everyone's trying to get into. We hear about the Brazilian tap. I don't know if you're familiar with it, because whenever you are in a submission, or you have a rear choke for a Brazilian is faking that is about to tap or is touching you, and then you let go. Those are things that the fighters are doing. I don't know if people are doing that on purpose just to hurt somebody,
I don't think
but
there's ever malicious intent ever. At least it hasn't looked like. It doesn't look like somebody's tried to do the Three Stooges, Larry, Curly, and Moe, and give somebody one right between the eyes. It's all, they've all definitely looked accidental, but it just seems like it's a weird coincidence that we've had such an influx of it within the last year. And you can go back and watch fights, and yeah, they were, like I said, Big John. I just happened to pick that one fight, and sure as shit, Big John, you point your fingers down, don't point your fingers up. So they were talking about it then, but it doesn't seem like the consequences of it really had any effect or were put into use until as of late. And I don't know if that's just because of more of a pad style boxing or that they're used to, or who knows, or they're trying to grab hands more so now, a lot more hand fighting than there used to be. I don't know. It just seems like there's been a large influx in eye pokes, and it's unfortunate to see. But it was a lot of handsy fighting going on throughout the night. I got to see one of my Canadians that I'm behind. He's a strange dude, but I like him. Tanner Boser got his knockout. He said he was going to come back. He had just fought not even 2 months ago, I don't even think. Yeah. He had lost a decision that he thought he had won, which there was good argument for that he had won. Wanted to get back into the ring. He was on his last fight of his deal, I believe. So I know he wanted to make a statement, and he got to make that statement. Now, I know there was a lot of controversy because people thought that he was yanking on the cage to pull himself up, but when they showed that last angle at the end of the night, or at the end of the fight, you could tell his fingers never even went into the hoops. He just pushed up and off of it, which is 100% totally legal, so there's nothing that can be said as far as that's concerned. He went out there, got the job done, was swinging for the fences, and managed a knockout in round 2, 2 minutes and 31 seconds in.
That is good technique whenever you're using the cage into your favor. Whenever they're trying to take you down, they say walk all the way back and use it as support.
Oh, yeah.
You can use it on your back. You can use it with your legs, your hands. Even if you're just putting the hand in there, you cannot grab it. I mean, if they're trying to pull you, you cannot grab it. That's legal. That's a good technique. It looks like he's a scrappy fighter because he knows all those little things that make it, and it was a very good knockout punch that he accomplished.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it was the end of his fight contract, so hopefully he'll get re-signed to come back, because he was stringing some wins together there before he took that decision loss, and then but like you were saying about with the rushing against the cage, getting against the cage, it's weird to see how there's like a mix between, you got your Khabib Nurmagomedovs and your Kamaru Usmans, where they want you against the cage, and then you get other ones where it's like, for instance, Damian Maia the other night when he was fighting, he kept getting the one leg on Bilal, but Bilal would bounce to the cage and use the cage to avoid the takedown. And you would say, well, why is he rushing him to the point to get him to the cage? Why wouldn't he just leave it in the middle of the ring and then try to do it? And it's you walk that fine line to, if you're going to get up against the cage, you better be powerful enough to make the cage work to your advantage in an offensive position. Because for the most part, it seems like it's used as a defensive tool, and most guys don't want to be down on their back in the middle of the ring. They want to be up against that cage so they can use it to their advantage. It's a strange game to have, and it's cool to see how something like the cage has become part of the sport.
Yeah, you use it to your advantages. You use it to escape. You use it for balance. I mean,
Pin guys down.
Depending on what gym you're coming out of and what type of techniques and defensively more often. And another thing, if you want to use it as the offense, you push and you clinch and you have it tied down to the cage, just as
stop a striker from getting away from you.
Or stopping a striker like that. And it's interesting. It was very good. I think he won out of the last 4, he lost 2, and the other 2 were knockout punches.
Yeah.
Well. So
he's put it.
Good streak, so.
He's one of my favorite Canadians right now, and I would probably say the number 1 Canadian right now, I think, is Jourdain. He excites me. I'm excited to watch his fights. And he's had some good wins, and he's another one who's still learning, very young, has a lot to learn, and a lot, he can get bigger, and has got a lot to do. Another one who's just getting into the game and is already finding himself in title contention thanks to his win this weekend was Cyril Gane with his win over Alexander Volkov. There was no question here. Drago is a beast at 6'7", but Gane just proved that he's the better fighter. Wasn't able to finish him, but got the unanimous decision. But and it wasn't a close fight. Pretty well knew who won at the end of it.
Now I'm concerned about Drago because he's coming from a standing uh, background. He was good on striking. He was active and moving. He was flat-footed.
Very
He was an
flat-footed and
easy
very
target.
defensive. He was looking for
Very defensive. You did not see him charge as he used to do.
and I think that shows the
Combinations were
respect
less.
for Cyril's counterpunching ability, is what I think that was. And I think Drago got gun shy because he knew how good his counterpunching ability was, but as a result, that basically took Drago's game away from him. What makes him a good fighter, he didn't do because the other fighter is good at countering that. It's you got to play that risk, man. When you're playing a game like this, it's either you do or you don't. Maybe they had a different game plan in camp. Obviously, they must have, but it didn't work into their favor. That's for sure.
Now, in that case, I mean, talking about Cyril, a lot of people were questioning if he was too tactical, if he was not as flashy, if he was not Derek Lewis type of haymakers. It was a very good fight. He fought a very smart fight. He did what he needed to do to win, and he took advantage of what Volkov gave. I think he was very good on making sure that he got all the advantage to his side. But once again, I'm not sure if that's enough to be competing against the champion.
Yeah.
But now,
but even in a loss,
against,
even in a loss, though, he still leveled up because he did, like you said, showed the because he's shown the flashy knockout stuff in the past. You know what I mean? So we've seen that. In this fight, we've seen that he can go the 5 rounds. He can, you know what I mean, fight tactically. He can weather the storm, so to speak. Because Volkov at times did let his hands loose, and when he did let his hands loose was when he was taking the upper hand in the fight for the short burst that there may have been. But still, Cyril was able to, you know what I mean, weather the storm and then go back on the offensive. But like you had said, I don't know if he's there in that upper echelon caliber. But we're gonna find out because surprising to all of us, Derek Lewis and Ciryl Gane are gonna fight for the interim title at UFC 265, and Francis Ngannou is shocked, as he should be. We were talking about this one off air a little bit. I can understand why Francis would be shocked. He's been off doing media tours and stuff. He's a new champ and everything. And you look at the history of the division with like Stipe and DC. They basically got to fight on their own terms. Stipe I think went a year, if not more, in between in between some of his fights. So it's not a big surprise for the heavyweight champ. You know, he can kind of take his time. You think a guy like Francis would be awarded that same luxury, but apparently he's not. The only thing I can think of is Derek Lewis. Houston's his hometown, really wanted to fight. I think he was willing to take any fight possible. Dana sees that as a money-making opportunity. You know what I mean? Cyril had a good showing, really didn't take too much damage. Let's get him in there against Derek Lewis, and then let's make an interim title, you know what I mean, to make the fight make sense, quote unquote, and so we can sell this a little bit better to make more money. If anything, I think this is just another example of Dana showing that the belts in the UFC mean absolutely fuck all.
Or the people that earn their way to win them and have the respect from Uncle Dana. Now, Gane did a very good job, 9-0. He's undefeated, but I mean, Junior Dos Santos, Jairzinho, and only Volkov are names that we might say, well, that's Boser as well. I forgot about him.
He's on the way up, but he's still got a lot to put in before he's even thought of in that conversation. But he's getting there.
And once again, when we were talking about interim titles, it doesn't make sense. What about Aljamain Sterling?
I understood the need for interim titles in the event that the champ gets injured. You know what I mean? Whether that be in training or whether that be getting the belt, because you look at something like Joanna and Wiley at the end of their fight, you're really going to expect them to jump in 6 months later after the hematoma Joanna had on her forehead. You know what I mean? Yeah, or the event, like say somebody breaks their arm but still wins the belt, or there's a huge injury. Yeah, okay, that I can see. If they're going to be out for a year and it's not their fault and it's like they've got no choice, it's going to be a year or more for them to heal. Yes, they're still the champion. Okay, bring in the interim title there. Francis just won his belt. What was it? 4 months ago? 5 months ago? That's almost a spit in the face to Francis Ngannou, as far as I'm concerned. It's not only that, and it's also showing, okay, to Dana, these belts absolutely don't mean shit, and we'll throw them to the wayside anytime I need to make a fight make sense for a little bit of change right here. And it's just, I got mixed emotions about it. Yeah, I think Cyril deserves it. I understand Derek Lewis wanting to fight in Houston. I wouldn't doubt if it's probably Derek Lewis pushing for this fight to happen just so he can fight in his hometown, and as well as Dana just sitting there going, yeah, we can make money. You know what I mean? That's how we're going to sell this crowd out. But I think it definitely sucks for Francis. I don't like it either, at all.
I don't like it one bit. I mean, if you tell me this is the fight that is going to define who's going to be the challenger for Ngannou, I buy it. And I'll say, yeah, heck yeah. Have it in Houston, make Derek Lewis be in front of him, of his people, and make some money, I'll buy it. But making it an interim...
I think this is just Dana's way of not having to go back on what he was saying, because he had chirped from the mountains that Derek Lewis was next in line, and that was all because we all know damn well had him and John come to an agreement on a contract that we would have had John versus Francis. And now, if anything, this gives, like, it's good business by Dana, because he can sell this fight as an interim championship for... But he and then it kind of gives him more time to make a contract with the winner of this fight and John Jones, maybe at a lesser price for Francis, kind of a warm-up fight for John, the way they've wanted it the whole time, and then give him Francis, and it gives Francis the time he needs. But throwing a belt into it, not even a full year or 6 months after Francis gets the title, just kind of, I don't know, it leaves a sour taste in my mouth.
Me too, and once again is Dana doing Dana things, which is, I mean, yeah, it's in it for the money. It's making sure that the sport continues to grow, but what about the fighters that are the important ones? Those are the real actors in there that are fighting their lives off. But well, anywho,
Is what it is. And another actor of actors, Sean O'Malley, is high and dry after an injury shakes up UFC 264 fight card. Of course, this is just going on to say Sean, I don't think, took the injury. It's
an undisclosed injury for Smolka.
Yeah.
Once again, similar to Max Holloway. Max Holloway pulled out of the card with Yair Rodriguez, and here the same. Smolka very close to it. They're not saying, and I was seeing all of their reactions of every bantamweight fighter wanted to get into
to go fight Sugar Shane.
And in that
Sugar
case,
Sean.
I said, well, I don't know if it's Sugar Sean that the one that is drawing all the attention, but it's more like, oh, yeah, I want to be on that card where the pay-per-view is going to be all eyes on Poirier and McGregor's.
And like I've said many times before, this guy right here, he's the Conor, he's a not production, but he's a result of Conor McGregor. The blueprint Conor McGregor laid out, that's who Sean O'Malley is. And that's why anybody, I'm not surprised that anybody would want to fight the Conor McGregor blueprint, you know what I mean, on a fight card with Conor McGregor. That all that's going to do is win or lose, it'll rise your stock. Maybe not a loss. You might end up on the wrong side of the highlight reel with this guy, because we all know what his hands are like. But we also know that, you know what I mean, he can lose. He is breakable. So it's a good opportunity for some up-and-comer, you know what I mean, to stake their claim. So I can definitely see why there would be so much excitement. I with as much as Sean O'Malley wants to fight, like he said, he's his own highlight reel. He's his biggest fan. And he's only got so much time to put on artwork in the ring and yada, 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 like he says. I wouldn't doubt to see this fight, not necessarily, maybe not with Smolka right away, but I wouldn't doubt if we still see Sean O'Malley fighting on that card.
Yeah, it's still listed as TBD. There's a lot of names that fell in there. I saw that Giga Chikadze also, he called out Yair because Yair did not wanted to take him instead of Holloway. But now I see that these fighters are all hungry and they want to be in there. I mean, it's Giga also called out Sugar Sean that, as you mentioned, he's a good show. I'm interested to see him, but he needs to get good challengers.
And that's the thing fighters. Is, along with him being exciting and all that, he's not a stupid kid. He's not gonna take a fight that he thinks he might need a specific camp for. I don't think anyway. I don't think he takes a fight that he thinks he would need a specific camp for, and risk a chance at not showing his best in the ring because of a last minute fight. But I think if it's somebody he remotely thinks, and this kid's cocky, he's very confident. If I think he remotely thinks he could kick somebody's ass, he'll take the fight without a problem.
The problem that I have in there is that the only fight that he lost, and he lost it, even though he's mentioning that it was an injury and should have been stopped, and he's just living on his lie, was against Chito Vera. And Chito Vera kicked the heck out of his ankle and just finished him on the first round. That was the real true challenge that he faced, and he did not pull through. I mean, he's exciting. His style is very good. It's a mix in between, as you said, Connor and Israel Adesanya. He's got a crowd on Twitch. He's got a channel. He sends merchandise. He's talk about using vitamins whenever he's training and just mixing it up. I mean, he's drawing a lot of people that they want into the business. But talking about combat, I think if he gets a chance with somebody that is going to push him on the wrestling side, on taking him to the mat, on BJJ, it's going to be a problem. And I don't know if that's going to be happening. If he's now in the position to say I'm not risking it, but
Yeah.
we'll see if that's happened.
If it's a striker, I bet he takes it. If it's a ground and pound or BJJ, he probably say no, I'll wait. But either way, it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's gonna suck if he doesn't fight, and we're, of course, by nature, I'm excited to see him fight. He's done his job well. You know what I mean? I am excited to watch this guy fight. He always makes it look good.
I agree with you.
Jan Blachowicz and Glover Texeira moved to UFC 266. Shout out Glover Texeira.
Yep, indeed. Still making it.
And this one's gonna be on Fight Island. Looks like UFC's making a return to Fight Island.
And I don't know if that's a good decision because they wanted to have that fight earlier. Now they want to push it over and wait a little bit longer. I don't know if that affects your planning and the camp. But I mean, I want to see Jan again fight, and as you said, I mean Glover again.
Kind of makes sense because neither one of those are American. You know what I mean? I think Glover, and they might train in America now, but I think their roots are still, you know what I mean, in that part of the country across the pond, as we say over here. So I don't think it's a horrible idea.
Yeah, but now you're talking about all the way to October.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much is going to change the outline of that division. What's going to be there in October, because there's a lot of things that are happening right now as we see on all the changes and people just fighting on.
To be honest, I don't really think they care, just due to the fact that they're what are they going to do with the division? You know what I mean? I don't think they really have any idea what they're going to do with the division. I think it's just Jan is so far ahead of that division with nobody really in sight that it's kind of, you know what I mean? I don't doubt if Jan walks through this one, you'll see Jan in talks to possibly bounce divisions and try to become a 2-belt champ. Who knows though?
Could be. That's my concern, and if it's way too down the road for the Polish on October to fight, it's okay. Who's gonna be the challenger in there on that division, and what's gonna be happening in there? Because we saw Adesanya just take over and try to make sure that he's on that division. There's no chance for him
unless he wants to. Unless Jan thinks he can lose some weight. And go chase Izzy's belt below him, but I don't see that happening.
Nah, not even close.
Joe Schilling scared for his life, cold-cocked and idiot rapper to fight back against global evil. Is Joe Schilling lost his mind?
Did you see that?
No, I haven't seen the video yet. I just been reading this as you posted it.
Now, there's a guy allegedly very drunk on a bar. He's dancing. He's got a tie and like a working guy attire that he's wearing. And the story that Joe said is that the waiter, which was a black guy, comes over and the other guy say, "Hey, I don't deal with you, N-word." So he heard him and move away. Came back from taking or just smoking the cigarette, and the guy was in the middle, and obviously Joe pushed him aside. He was not like nicely and politely, hey, excuse me, I'm going on my way. He pushed him aside. The guy turns and said, hey, what's wrong with you? And he does this. Whenever he does this, it's 1-2 punches and it's down.
Yeah.
So he jumped the gun. I don't know what's gonna happen with Joe. I mean, I like him because I've seen him on interviews and several podcasts. He seems like a cool guy. Not, I mean, it's not one of the most known MMA fighters out there, but he's fearless. He was very good whenever he was doing on the kickboxing, and I follow a little bit of his kickboxing career. But man, I don't know if this is gonna come back and hunt him on all of those lawsuits and whatever he's gonna deal. But he said, and this is obviously ironic, he was scared for his life because he's gonna get punched by that guy. You gotta see that video. It's like me trying to fight him.
Yeah.
There's no point.
Yeah. No. But hey, a shout out to him for standing up what he believes in, for standing up for people who may not be able to otherwise do it themselves in the given position. It's hard for me to say I possibly wouldn't do the same thing, but yeah, I don't know. When you're living under a microscope like that, you got to be really careful. And I think that's proven time and time again with any professional athlete. Max Holloway, like we had said, he's been injured and he's out for the fight night matchup against Yair Rodriguez. Is this the second time Max has had to pull out?
I can't remember if he had to pull out before.
Either way, it's tough to see. I don't think this is the first. Max has had but Max has said he trains like he fights, and that's just the way it goes. And this is the consequences of training like you fight. When you're going 100% in training.
But he doesn't spar. I mean, he does go hard, but one of the things that is surprising is that he doesn't spar.
Yeah.
That's my concern. I mean, one time, again, follow him and just seeing what he does on the interviews. He says, I don't spar. I mean, I box and strike for so many years that I don't have to spar. I'm focusing on other areas,
technique and
my cardio, my volume. That we see him. I mean, his cardio is out of this world, so he doesn't spar. My concern is that these type of injuries are not.
Has it said what it is?
Undisclosed.
So you got to worry that maybe he's trying to work on his BJJ and he's blowing ligaments out, or he's kicking stuff and breaking his shins, or his bones are just wearing down because he's been at it so long. Who knows what it is? It's just tough to see because Max is such a dominant fighter. He's kind of got, you know what I mean, fucked around on his last two title defenses or title aspirations. I think he won both those fights, but I can see why the argument can be made for Volk winning them. But I don't know. It sucks for Max Holloway. It sucks for the fans because he is such a great fighter. Very few guys with that energy and that charisma and that talent. It just really sucks to see.
Blessed indeed. Unfortunately, that fight was exciting for me. The El Pantera, Yair Rodriguez, was going to be coming back big. I mean, taking a very big challenge. I don't know if they haven't announced who's fighting. Similar to Sugar Sean, everyone was saying, "Hey, Yair, take me. Don't be a pussy." He was called out by Giga Chikadze. So I'm not sure if that's what's going to happen. I don't know where Yair heads in right now because he said that he had personal problems, so I don't know that he's gonna pull out, but that's a concern on the amount of injuries that it's happening in there.
Yeah, like you said, Giga said he called out Max Holloway, but Yair has not accepted the bout, and well, that's not on him to do that. You know what I mean? The contract is signed for Holloway. If he wants to wait, that's on him. Giga's easy to say when you're not there, you know what I mean? When it's not happening to you.
Hey, but once again, he's not doing anything wrong.
He calls shoot your shot.
Saying, hey, I just want to fight. Put me in there.
Yeah, I don't think you need to be resorting to name calling when you don't get your way, though. I don't think that does anything for you. It doesn't help you by any means. You're not a tough guy because you can call people names. And you're not going to get anybody whose mind's made up. Oh, you called me that? Well, no, I'll fight you now. Yeah, like it's not going to happen. Some maybe, but. And then, of course, I was kind of excited to see this. I had mixed emotions about Anderson Silva moving to boxing. Now, I'm hearing, like I said, Pep, I never ever claimed to be a boxing aficionado. That's what we have you for here. But I'm hearing from a lot of people that Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was never a good boxer. And that Anderson Silva, you know what I mean? It's a feather in the cap, but it isn't kind of deal.
Well, let me place let me set out the story of the entire night. There is a story between the Chavez brothers and Canelo Alvarez brothers as well. There were early fights where the Canelo Alvarez brothers fought. Um, you see one side of the coin, which is Canelo Alvarez discipline, training wise, and just focus on the business, and that's how the Canelo brothers took it, and they dominated early and at night. Now coming into this was not the main fight. The main fight was Julio Cesar Chavez, the Mexican champion, el gran campeón mexicano. That was the old guy, the old man was fighting, and that was the one that I was nervous because he fought the son of El Macho Camacho, and Macho Camacho passed away. He was one of the fearless competitors against Julio Cesar Chavez back in the time. That was the main one. Watching Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and saying he was not a good boxer might be an understatement because he became world champion. He held a title, he fought his way through, and he defended it, I think, one or two times successfully. What's the problem there? It's the same thing that happened here with Anderson Silva. You get the GOAT, you get the Spider Man, you get someone that is disciplined, you get someone that focus exclusively on boxing, and he looked great. And Chavez was overweight. He had to pay Anderson to fight. Obviously, he was gassed. He had no rhythm, no cardio, very less punches. He was known by his power. He couldn't find Anderson, and we saw the Anderson Silva that we saw in the octagon, calling people in. He was fast. He was moving. He was quick on his feet. So nothing to take away out of Anderson Silva, but you have to recognize that's what happened with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. career. Lack of discipline. He got trouble with drugs, with women, with cartels. A very bad story. And in the end, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. mentioned, I mean, he pulled up Canelo Alvarez and said, "Hey, this is not gonna be one of the best fighters in Mexico, but probably one of the best fighters ever." And he was talking about the discipline, the hard work. Just it felt to me like, "Hey, you couple of sons that I have that don't train, look at this. This is what you should have become." And unfortunately, that's what happened with Chavez Jr. But let's talk about Anderson Silva. What a display of class.
Is this the next step in Anderson fighting one of the Paul brothers?
They ask him if he feels he's gonna be next, and in that picture you see behind him, that's his son. His son is a boxer. He was training and he was doing camp with him for this. Now his son is gonna be fighting in Brazil, and they ask him, "Hey, what's next for you? Are you gonna be coming back and box? Are you gonna train? Are you gonna focus on only jujitsu and do those exhibitions?" He said, "Well, I trained. My dream was to become one of the boxers." He was so excited because Canelo Alvarez went to him and says, I'm starstruck." I talked to him and he said, "You have what it takes to be a good fighter." So he said that he's open for options, but he didn't call out any names. We might see him on one of those exhibitions further down the line, and I'm not sure if he's looking for the money because he doesn't need it.
Yeah, I don't. It doesn't strike me as Anderson's in it for the cash grab. Anderson's just a love of fighting and a love of the sport. And I think that's honestly why he's still at it. So it wouldn't be surprised. I don't think trying to fight one of the Paul brothers is necessarily as important to him as maybe a former UFC champion and Rashard Evans, who has now announced that he's coming out of retirement. Now, as he said, he wants to fight MMA or boxing, whatever comes along the line. Yeah, exactly. He's made mention in the past that he wants to fight one of the Paul brothers. Hey, maybe we'll get Rashard Evans versus Anderson Silva as just purely a boxing match, not a match I wouldn't hate seeing.
And we have Tyron Woodley already preparing for a boxing match, in which I shared a video the other day with Bong, and it said he looked slow,
Yeah.
he looked clumsy, he was using the pads, and it's like, wow, that's not fast.
But
That is
that's
not
kind of
good
been the
technique.
thing through all of this, and it's always they release these half-ass videos because Connor did it when he was fighting Floyd. That was the whole big thing is that was only half, and he's only putting the video out there to make it look like he's not really training. Ben Askren did the same thing. Turns out Ben Askren really wasn't training, and then now we got Tyrone Woodley, so it makes you really don't know what to believe. Rashard Evans, though, it kind of shocked me because I don't know if anybody's ever watched him since he's left fighting. He's not the same guy he used to be. He's explored psychedelics a lot and stuff now through interviews he's done on the Joe Rogan podcast and stuff like that. So it's I don't know if I think this one here just feels more like a money grab to me than anything else.
We'll see what's up next for them. Now you mentioned McGregor, you mentioned everything on there. Let's talk about the event that we will have, so you can do your predictions for that.
Oh, we still got Amanda Nunez with the ESPY.
Oh, yeah.
She's up for an ESPY award, and Luis Pena got arrested. So ESPY award for Amanda Nunez. Which ESPY is it? Best athlete in women's sports. Hey, give it to her. Sign her up. But there's been a lot. Yeah, I can't see why not. She's dominant, accomplished. Nobody's touching her now. Nobody's touching her in the future that I can see. I honestly think she's probably going to retire a two division champ. Why wouldn't you add to them accolades and give her an ESPY?
We're talking about MMA, but I love sports and I love the Olympics.
I was thinking the same thing.
she's just against Simone Biles.
Yeah.
That girl is breaking records. She holds every record in the gymnastics in the U.S. for the past, I don't know, 7 to 8 years. She dominates all of the all around, and she dominates on the Olympics. So it's a hard task. I mean,
but I think they couldn't. So they hand these out.
I should have been wearing my lioness shirt. I love Amanda Nunez. But it's hard.
But think about it this way, Pep. The Olympics are happening this year, right? So give Amanda this year's nomination, you know what I mean? And give it to Simone next year because she's probably going to mop up at the Olympics. Because it is the Summer Olympics this time around. It's the Summer Olympics this time around, right?
Yeah, it's in a few days.
Yeah. So, I don't know. But obviously
it's gonna be hard, but it's interesting to see. Now, once again, that's a Mickey Mouse company, and I've lost.
And awards don't mean shit to a lot of these people, and it's all whatever it is, what it is. But I definitely think when you're trying to say women's sport and greatest of all time women in their sport, Amanda Nunez is one of those. But like you said, Simone Biles is another one. There's many that as you go down the line. But any and all accolades you want to put or you want to pin on Amanda Nunez's chest, I'm all for because she is just such a dominant human being.
Let me question what's happening here. Do you think that this would be the same if ESPN did not have a hand in the UFC?
Probably not.
And Amanda was dominant before.
Yeah, no, I get you. It's not like she's been dominant, but the same can be said for Simone too.
Yeah.
But and then the questions asked is who's gonna have the longer career on the other side of this? You know what I mean? Who's gonna be? It's that, and even that's hard to say because Amanda doesn't look like she needs to retire. You know what I mean? But I think I don't want to speak for her. I just get a weird feeling that we're just always one fight away from it being the last fight with her because she really doesn't need to fight. She's got nothing to prove. She's proved it all. So it's just you always feel like maybe the end is near for her, but who knows? She could go another 10 years as far as we know.
Yeah. Until the clash for Valentina Shevchenko happens.
But somebody who's not going to go 10 years is Luis Pena. He got arrested for robbery and sudden snatching and battery. What the hell is sudden snatching and battery? Who knows what's involved with this one? But Luis Pena been arrested. now being held. I don't know if he's still being held. Alleged incidents.
No, one of those
It's a whole crazy
problems
story.
that I have is that companies take care of their employees and they make sure that they're well heard and see if that happens. These guys are on their own. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, 100%.
if he's a if he's a if he had a problem before and somebody noticed, I mean, somebody from the company that works for him is like, hey, we have yellow signs in here. There's a red flag. Why don't we talk to him? Let's see how it's involved in his family, what's going on in his circle. But man, that is
That ain't
just
the
so
UFC, man. As
sad.
soon as you're gonna start making UFC look bad, they will cut all ties with you faster than you know what I mean. Your head will spin. That's just the way they've always been. Even with some of their like, I even think that they've handled so much stuff just weird. But now and now, what blows my mind is they have something like this where they'll wash their hands of the whole situation. But now we're getting a fight lore about TJ Dillashaw's steroid use. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah, you're trying to victimize somebody that was cheating.
exactly. Whereas here we have a possible real victim, and the UFC will just totally turn their back on him.
Now, once again, I'm not for that type of behavior.
Oh no, not at all.
I'm not for that it should be allowed, but once again, what if you could avoid getting to this? What if you could have counseled the guy? What if you could have just do something for the person? But no, it's just a fighter and you're not fighting anymore and you're in trouble. You're on your own.
But yeah, who knows? Hopefully things work out for him. But moving along into next weekend. So we're not. Is it next weekend? Yeah, next. No, not next weekend. The weekend after.
Next
So
weekend is July 4th.
I'm currently in the middle of.
There's nothing.
I'm currently in the middle of moving. So Dab Hatter Studios is going to be in a new location come our next podcast. So we're actually going to miss next Tuesday, which is okay because there's no fights this weekend. Obviously Canada Day, July 1st, and then Independence Day with July 4th. So I would imagine that's probably why they're not having any fights this weekend. So it only makes sense that we wouldn't have a podcast the following week. Also gives me time to move, but also gives us time for the new Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier card that's coming up. Once we'll watch that, and we'll come back and break that one down. But of course, as always, I'm going to make my picks for the card because it's a main card. And of course, Pepe is now keeping track. I looked over this one before. Pretty easy call for me all the way across the board. It's all the left side.
Excuse me? Pretty easy, you said?
I think this is the most confident I've been. I made snap decisions with. I didn't have to really think about them at all. If the Sean O'Malley fight does go down, I'm of course going to take Sean O'Malley in that fight.
Irene, Derek Brunson versus Sean O'Malley. You take him?
Yep. Yeah, I'd still take Sean.
Wow, good.
Because I think Sean's got good enough takedown defense, and I don't think like Brunson's good at takedowns and wrestling, but he hasn't shown me in his last two fights that he would be able to compete with. I don't know. Maybe Sean just got smoke and mirrors. Couldn't imagine.
Out of my butt. Derek Brunson is huge and whatever. I said someone like that sort of type of fighter.
But yeah, no, a wrestler. I think he's got enough. If it ends up being a wrestler, I don't think he takes a fight. But if he does take I don't think Sean's going to take a fight he don't think he can win, and I think if he thinks he can win it, I would take that confidence and I'd bet on Sean O'Malley any day.
All right. Down.
On the next one, Irene Aldana versus Yana. I'm going to take Irene Aldana. Yeah. I'm going to take Irene Aldana. Tai Tuivasa versus Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy has not done anything in the UFC that impresses me at all. He took an illegal puffer mid-round and was shocked why that was a problem. But Tai Tuivasa, on the other hand, has impressed me in his last two fights, and I really hope he wins because I want to see him do another. Shoey.
Nasty.
And Gilbert Burns versus Stephen Thompson. I think this is one. He was hurt for a bit, was he not?
Who? Gilbert?
No, Stephen Thompson.
Yeah, he's been out for quite a while. Can't remember when was his last outing. I mean, he's been preparing. 2020, he fought Geoff Neal.
Oh, so a year ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. Gilbert Burns is such a machine, and he even looked good against in the loss to Kamaru Usman. I think Gilbert Burns wins this fight, and we see Gilbert Burns, Kamaru Usman too, shortly after that, and then
Prediction of the next fight?
prediction of prediction. I'm predicting the prediction, and then the Dustin Poirier Conor McGregor fight. I just don't. I never want to bet against Conor, but Dustin looks so... the way I think this all went down, Dustin was shell-shocked in the first fight, didn't fight a regular Dustin fight, that's why he lost. The second fight was a Dustin fight, showed that he is a better fighter than Conor, and I think the third fight's going to go the same, and we'll see Dustin Poirier come out. I don't see this fight going the distance, so I think it's Dustin Poirier with a finish.
Well, I don't know if you know the person, but George St. Pierre.
Oh, I definitely know who that is.
Of course. He said that Conor is going to win it, is going to win it early.
Well, hey.
That.
I'm not. George says a lot of things though that he doesn't really mean. If you watch any of his fights, that was actually kind of funny because people give him shit for shit talking when he was fighting Matt Hughes. And then he turned around and apologized for shit talking. Probably the only guy in the UFC ever to do so. And of course, he's Canadian.
he's too freaking nice. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The first fight, Dustin got into Conor's game.
Yeah.
Conor got into his head. He played the game, etc. On the second one, Dustin was ready. Conor was mocking him. They were on the face-off. He was ready as well. He was serious. He even got him like I don't know if it was a sauce or something. And Conor was more like, oh, friendlier. That was
as long as the knockout doesn't blow Dustin's head up, which is also a possibility, but I don't think it's happened. I think Dustin's disciplined enough to not allow that to happen, and that's why I think it's a Dustin finish. I don't know what round.
Coming back to how it evolved the fighting, the key to that victory was the freaking leg.
Oh, that leg kicks.
Dustin was using. He was just.
Conor was limping for like 3 days after that. He had a crutch when he was in like media and stuff. Like he was fucked up from that. Not only from the knockout, but from those leg kicks.
Once again, they were talking about what's going to happen in there. Is he going to check? Is he going to twist? Is he going to use the knee? Is Dustin going to use that one? I'm excited to see that fight. It's going to be good.
I'm definitely excited to see it too.
The money.
Yeah.
That's for the money. There's no belt involved. But once again, as we said with Nate Diaz, you want to see Nate Diaz because of what Nate Diaz is, not because there's a belt involved.
Yeah.
Fight. And this one, I think it's the same. I want to see Conor. Shout out Ghana that he doesn't love Conor, but he's one of the fighters that put the UFC and the world. And Dustin is a very good fighter. I love his heart and I love the way he works. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be another great night of fights, and I'm sure a lot of great fights. It's a stacked card when you look at it from top to bottom. Even Jessica I's fighting in the early prelims, I think, even. So it's a pretty good card from bottom to top. It'll be great. We'll be back here again. I believe that will be the 13th. Yeah, so we'll be back again the 13th to break that fight down with you. This has been MMA with Pepe and Dab. Thanks for watching. We'll miss you all next week, but we'll be back. We'll be back here the week after that, just to keep things right on moving. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.